What's up, everybody? It's your favorite electrician, Doug, here. Welcome back to the Modern Electrician Podcast. As always, happy to have each and every one of you here listening to these conversations as we figure out how we do what we do better through conversations with people just like you, working every day to just kind of improve your life, improve your situation, improve your skills, get better at what you do every single day. I got mad respect for all of you out there. You know, Josh and I talk about it all the time. This is an amazing community to be a part of, and we just hope to, be giving back to it in some way. Today, I want to talk to you guys before we go into the episode about the concept of hard work and my love affair with it. And I want to talk about it in this approach, this idea that learning skills is the best way or a great way to get your autonomy in life. Like, your skills can give you the freedom you're looking for. And I just want that message to be out there, because those of us, it's easy to lose sight of why we love to do what we do, because it's hard. We say it all the time. The work's hard, kicks your ass. So sometimes it's just like, man, I got to go get my ass kicked again today. But if you can remember some of these things, like that, having that skill set provides you with the autonomy to do various things. If you're not happy in your job, you could really transition into something else with a skill set, and those skills provide you fluidity and freedom, and I think autonomy. And the story I want to tell you this morning is about that, and how I came to love the autonomy that came from developing skills, and how I recognized why that was important. So, like, when I was a comedian back in the early part of the 2000s, all I cared about was comedy. That was it. I was like hyper obsessed and just worked on that all the time. And that's great. But I was also in my early 20s and was learning about the world. And, as you learn things about the world, your perspectives change. And one of the things that really got me when I was in my early to mid 20s was the food system, and kind of how food is produced, and the treatment of animals and all of it. And it bothered me to the point where I was like, man, I want to pay attention to this sort of stuff, or I want to, the main thing I wanted to do was put my money where my mouth was. And I'm a meat eater, but I wanted to try to eat responsibly sourced meat, things like that. But I quickly found that, especially at the area I was in my life, or the point I was in my life, I couldn't really afford Whole Foods, right? I remember the first time I went to Whole Foods, I was like, oh, wow, okay. That's an eye-opener. In my early 20s, I couldn't afford to really buy organic food. It seemed like a luxury thing, and that was strange to me, because I'm like, well, damn. So there's this big system of growing food that doesn't really make healthy food, and that's not necessarily the point. It's more about feeding lots and lots and lots of cows that can feed lots of people. But the other way is, if I try to contribute to organic food, I can't really do it because I can't afford it. And it was the first real eye-opener in my life that, man, I need to know how to do these things. Why don't I know how to do stuff? And that was the first time that thought hit me. Man, I don't know how to do shit. I don't know how my house works. I don't know. All I know how to do is make a room full of people laugh, which is it's a fine skill. But I just kind of became feverish about that quest. And I started to see how all of us are like that, not those of us in the trades, but us as Americans. We don't know how to do anything. And that became apparent to me. I was like, man, I don't know how anything works. And I wanted to, and I felt like farming and gardening and food was the best place to start, because if I could grow food for my family, then I don't have to go spend an exorbitant amount of money on food. And in fact, if I grow it in my backyard, it's better than getting it from a Whole Foods, because you just cut out the entire transportation industry side of things. So I was like, man, I'm just going to start learning how to grow food. And it was through gardening and farming that I fell in love with hard work, working with my hands, physical labor. As a stand-up, my work was mostly just in my mind. The travel was physical, but it was mostly just psychological thought work. Working as a gardener and a farmer, I started apprenticing with a guy in my area who was starting his own farm, and I loved it. I loved my hands in the dirt. I loved the seasons. I loved how gardening puts you in touch with reality. And I started to see how, like, we all live this way. We don't, we all live in homes that are supplied with inputs from the outside in, and most of us don't know how they work or care how they work. We get electricity, everything. I started seeing houses as like people on a hospital bed with like IVs in them, where everything was this outside input. And I wanted to kind of pull those IVs out of myself and be like, man, I want to know how to do stuff. I want to know how to be the master of my own domain. I want to know how to build a house. I want to know how to wire a house. And that was the beginning of me starting to get interested in the trades. It really stemmed from like a subsistence crisis, where I was like, I didn't like the idea that I had to rely on everything around me all the time for my basic needs. I felt like that was silly. I felt like it was my responsibility as a human to know how these things worked. And so, through gardening, it was like this idea that, hard work can be fun and feel good. And, we hear so much in our society nowadays that people, there's almost like a negative tone toward hard work. People will say things like, work smarter, not harder. I had a conversation with my older daughter's boyfriend at one point where he's a very smart kid, and we were talking about something, and he said, well, I like to work smarter, not harder. And I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, no, I mean, I work smart. We definitely think it through and take the smartest route, but I don't care how smart you are. You're not going to outthink that crawl space. You got to get in there. You're not going to think the 100-pound chandelier onto that 20-foot ceiling. You got to get up. You have to work smarter and harder. And I just think that if you're constantly trying to avoid hard work, and I know I'm talking to tradespeople here, so I'm not talking to y'all. You know what I'm saying? I'm with you guys. That we're the ones. That's why I have respect for tradespeople, because we're the ones who don't avoid hard work. It has to get done, and there's something beautiful in it. There's something beautiful about being tired at the end of the day. Yeah, sometimes it sucks. Sometimes it's a drag. You bust your knuckles. It's cold. It's easy to glorify something from the while I'm sitting here in a dry attic on a Sunday. But when I'm in a crawl space, I'm less enthusiastic. But the point remains that you can't outthink all of the hard stuff. You have to develop a mindset that embraces hard work, because hard work's wonderful. It's how we get everything done, and it shouldn't go away. And we can't be a generation of people, or raise a generation of people that are nervous to work or don't really want to put that effort in, because the only way you get anything done is through great effort. And so, that's really the point, is that I just have a lot of respect for those of you out there in the trades, people who wake up in the morning and, wake up early and go out in the cold and get stuff done. The world depends on us, and, our society has to stop seeing people in blue-collar settings as some sort of lesser-than thing. Not everybody does, but there's still that stigma that's like, well, it's the downstairs people work in the trades. And it's like, well, maybe, but I like it downstairs. And we're the ones who are willing to get into the sewers and clean them out. And so I just, every time of year, this time of year when I start to get back in the garden, part of gardening is reminding me of this, because it's easy to lose sight of this perspective. It's easy to be like, man, this hard work sucks. I'm out. And I get that. But I just want to say to all you out there who are about to embark on another week of hard work, I'm proud of you. I think it's cool as shit. You're going to learn more stuff this week than most people sitting behind a desk. So get out there and do it and feel good about it. Be proud of yourself. Because we blue collar folk, we're the ones not avoiding it anyway. So that's my my point, my little preamble to today's episode. Today's episode, what I want to do here is, as our show grows, Josh and I are finding new ways to record conversations while we're on the fly. So thanks to Kyle Figueroa, we picked up some little lavalier mics, and we started recording when we do work together. Josh and I don't always work together every day, but when we do and we get to ride together, we're going to be recording more of these conversations. And basically what it is, even though we've been doing this a long time, Josh longer than me, and you get into your routines, we're not the kind of dudes who like roll down the highway and just don't talk. Like, we're constantly talking about either the business, or in this instance, we were headed down to Virginia, and we're basically just going to take you guys with us on a little drive time as we head down to Virginia and back up to Frederick. And just the things that we talk about while we're driving, and when we're in the truck, how we're planning for the day, the things we're discussing about projects coming up. And then on the way back, you'll hear us talk a lot about the project that we did and the challenges that we faced, how we overcame them, how we problem solved in this particular situation. Every scenario is different when you go into a home and you do something. This particular instance, we hung a 125-pound chandelier on a roughly 20-foot ceiling, and it had, and you'll hear us talk about it, had nearly 200 glass components. So it was a good one. It was like a time-consuming, tight butthole, very nice house, big chandelier. And this episode just kind of is Josh and I talking about our procedure and our process, and debriefing afterwards, what worked, what didn't, how do you what's your process? It's what it's really all about. We're always trying to hash that out. So hopefully you guys get something out of this episode. I mean, you're basically just listening to two electricians in the truck talk about how they do what they do. Hopefully it's helpful to you. Anybody listening to the podcast that's not an electrician might find this one too technical. But hey, if you're listening to the podcast, you're not an electrician, and you've made it this far, God bless you.